Robert, welcome at the new session of AreaS Fokus.
My pleasure.
The midterm elections in the US are about 1 week, the 6th of November.
That's right.
And I would like you to explain a little bit about the midterms. What are the midterms?
Well, they're called midterm elections because the president is elected for 4 years, but Congress is elected every 2 years. So in the middle of his term, there are going to be congressional elections, and therefore they're called midterm elections. And in midterm elections, Congress, which is made up of two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate, each have members being elected. The House of Representatives has 435 members in all, and all of those members are up for re-election every 2 years. The Senate has 100 members, 2 from each state, and 1/3 of those are elected every 2 years. And that is because senators sit for 6 years. So only 1/3, that is a minimum of 30 of them, are elected in midterm elections each time they're held. This year there are 33 because 3 people have retired or died. So there are 33 Senate seats up and 435 representatives in the House of Representatives.
So you would say that the midterms are the most important elections in the US after the presidential election?
Certainly on the national level, yes, absolutely.
And what is particular with this year's elections compared to previous midterms?
Well, there's 2 things. First of all, there's the fact that the United States is at the moment very polarized into 2 camps, and this was essentially the case before the Trump election, but now it's truly galvanized. Trump has made people either love him or hate him, love the Republicans or hate the Republicans, love the Democrats or hate the Democrats. So it's very much in a sort of red state, that's the Republicans, blue state confrontation. And that means there's a lot of interest. And that's the second thing, really, that this has pumped up interest. There are more people who say they're going to vote. Normally in midterm elections, not that many people vote. It's been down to 41, 33% of the people, not nearly as many as during presidential. But this time around, people are gung-ho. They want to vote this time around. So these are unusual in that sense, that there's a lot of interest and a lot of activity.
Would you say that the political debate in the US is more radicalized on both sides than what used to be the case in previous elections?
Over the last 10 years or more, it's become more and more polarized. And that's why I talked about this red state, blue state. That's the way they talk about it, red state, blue state confrontation. And yes, it was polarized all the way from the time, perhaps, of the Bush administration and the wars that began in Iraq, in Afghanistan in those days. But they have never been as polarized as just these days with President Trump. Since 2016, he has, the manner in which he conducts politics and the way in which he's led the Republican Party have led people to seriously hate him or seriously love him. So it's more polarized than ever.
But the Republicans are more mobilized to support the president now because of, for example, the Kavanaugh case, or because of recent events?
Well, Kavanaugh, of course, was Brett Kavanaugh, and that's the Supreme Court justice that Trump just managed to get through the Senate. And that certainly made a lot of Republicans sit up, because the Democrats were very much against him and used, among other things, the Republicans say they used accusations of sexual harassment earlier and that kind of thing. That made a lot of Republicans angry. And let's make it clear, not all Republicans like Trump. In fact, Trump wasn't even a Republican before he got elected. So a lot of them didn't like him and felt kind of, I'm not sure I want to vote for him. But when they saw the Democrats attack Brett Kavanaugh as his nomination for the Supreme Court, then they said, no, I think I'll vote, I'm going to vote anyway. I'm going to go out and vote anyway.
Because of the opposition to the establishment?
No, well, because they felt the Democrats were unfair towards, and that the media was unfair towards Brett Kavanaugh. But these are the people who support Trump, and that's not all the Republicans. And even about He has a rating of about 36 to 37% who will support him anyway.
But talking about the balance of power in U.S. politics, what would be the possible outcome of a victory or not? But what does it mean for the balance of power?
Right. Well, if
between the president and
at the moment, it looks as if the Democrats are going to win the House of Representatives, not the Senate, but the House of Representatives, and that means they control one of the two chambers of Congress. Both chambers of Congress must agree on legislation if it is to be passed and become law in America, both of them. And then it goes on to the president to be signed, and then it becomes law, and only then. If the Democrats can get a majority now in the House of Representatives, then they can block legislation, for example, about immigration or about public finance, or about laws of other kinds, and not least budgetary matters, by saying, no, we won't accept it. Even if the Senate remains Republican, they can block it because it has to be both of them that agree before it can be legislated.
What does it mean for foreign policy, for defense, for military operations abroad?
Well, foreign policy falls under the president. But it's paid for by the Congress. And the Congress can also put together committees that look into whether or not this is a wise policy or not. So they cannot directly change policies, but they can underfund them or refuse to accept funding for them, or say, we're not going to pass the budget unless you stop the following thing. For example, Trump has wanted to build a wall against Mexico. Right? That probably would not happen if the Republicans if the Democrats control the House of Representatives. The Republicans, on the other hand, very much want to continue to control the House of Representatives, because right now they have both houses, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and they control the presidency. So they're in a position to put through their programs, and they are doing so. So they want to keep the House of Representatives. But at the moment, it looks as if the Democrats have the upper hand. About 7 to 9% advantage in terms of public opinion. The Democrats lead with about 7 to 9%.
So a victory for Democrats would give them a kind of budgetary power.
Oh, absolutely, it would, and would give them power over many other areas too, not least investigating Trump. Remember that Congress stopped investigating his ties to the Russians and other things because the Republicans controlled the House. If the Democrats control the House, they can form that committee again, and they can go in depth. So they can investigate, they can have all kinds of activities using the full power of the federal government behind them. So, and that was the way the system is supposed to work. They're supposed to be in conflict. They're supposed to balance one another. And the hope among the Democrats is that they're now going to have a place to be able to check the power of the president.
Robert, last question.
Yes.
Have you seen any evolution in the prognosis the last weeks, last month? And what is your prognosis about the outcome of the election?
At the moment, the Democrats, as I mentioned, are 7 to 9% ahead of in terms of public polls. And I think that's going to give the Democrats a majority in the House of Representatives. That's what people believe. It was more, it was 10%, so it has gone down a bit, possibly because of Brett Kavanaugh, possibly because the economy is doing well, but they're still leading by 7 to 9%, and that looks like it's going to hold. So I would predict they're going to get the House of Representatives, but the Senate is unlikely because very few of the seats that are up are indeed Republican seats. Only 8 of all of the 33 that are up are Republicans. So that means the Democrats have to hold everything they have plus take a couple of seats in order to be able to get a majority. And that doesn't look likely to happen at the moment.
Robert, thanks for your explanations.
My pleasure.
Thanks.